My name is Emma, I'm 28, and my sister physically attacked me when I first introduced my fiancé to my family. Before I tell you about how my parents ambushed me by bringing her to my bridal shower, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. The day started like a dream. My Aunt Patricia, bless her heart, had transformed her elegant home into a floral wonderland for my bridal shower. Every corner was adorned with soft pastels, delicate lace, and arrangements of fresh peonies and roses. 30 of my closest friends and family, all women, gathered, laughing, sharing stories, and showering me with love. The air buzzed with genuine warmth and excitement. James, my fiancé, even made a brief appearance with his brother Michael, just to say hello and give me a quick kiss, before heading off to give us girls some space. I was floating on air, truly. I'd never felt so cherished, so seen, so utterly happy. This was the culmination of so much love and support, a celebration of the future I was building. Then, the doorbell rang again. Aunt Patricia, a picture of grace in her silk dress, went to answer it, a puzzled look on her face. And there they were. My parents, Richard and Diana, standing on the porch, a forced, almost brittle smile plastered on my mother's face. And right beside them, Olivia. My younger sister, Olivia. The air in the room didn't just drop, it shattered into a million icy fragments. My heart, which had been soaring moments before, plummeted to my stomach with a sickening lurch. 6 years. 6 long years of carefully maintained distance, of unspoken rules, of a fragile, hard-won peace. 6 years of avoiding this exact scenario. And now, this. My best friend and maid of honor, Jessica, saw her before I did. Her eyes widened, and she immediately stepped between us, a silent, protective barrier, her body language screaming defiance. My parents, oblivious to the shockwave they'd just sent through the room, walked in as if they were royalty, dragging Olivia along, who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. My mother, Diana, announced, her voice too loud, too cheerful, piercing the stunned silence, "We're here to celebrate Emma, and for the girls to finally reconcile." Enough time has passed. I just stared at them, my mind reeling. How could they? How could they do this to me, here, now, on my day? The day that was supposed to be about me, about James, about our future. I felt a hot flash crawl up my neck, a familiar wave of indignation mixed with profound hurt. My hands clenched into fists at my sides. This wasn't just an ambush, it was a blatant disregard for my feelings, for my boundaries, for the peace I had fought so hard to build. I had a right to be angry. I had a right to protect my peace. This was my day, and they were trying to ruin it, just like they had tried to ruin so many other moments in my life. I knew, deep down, that I had to make a stand. This couldn't be swept under the rug again. This wasn't just about a bridal shower, this was about reclaiming my life. At that moment, I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. This wasn't just about a bridal shower. This was about 6 years of a toxic legacy, a lifetime of being overlooked, undermined, and ultimately, profoundly betrayed. My parents, Richard and Diana, had always fostered an insidious rivalry between Olivia and me. It wasn't just sibling squabbles, it was a constant, unspoken competition for their approval, for their love, for their attention. If I excelled in school, they'd say, "Olivia's so creative, though, and she struggles so much more." If I got a good grade, it was always followed by a sigh about Olivia's academic struggles. If I got a promotion at work, it was, "Well, Olivia's still finding her path, but she'll get there, she just needs more support." Every success of mine was a slight against Olivia in their eyes, and every struggle of hers was somehow my fault, a burden I was expected to bear. It felt like they were actively trying to diminish my achievements to prop her up, to maintain some warped sense of balance. I remember one time, when I got into my dream college, they spent the entire dinner talking about how Olivia was struggling with her applications, making me feel guilty for my own success. It wasn't about celebrating me, it was always about balancing the scales, usually at my expense. They even hinted that Olivia's college fund might need to be prioritized more than mine, given her challenges, as if my future was less important. The real breaking point, the moment that fractured our family beyond repair, happened 6 years ago. I was 22, fresh out of college, navigating the exciting, terrifying world of adulthood, and head over heels in love with James. We'd been friends for 3 years before we started dating, building a solid foundation of trust and understanding. He was everything I'd ever wanted: kind, steady, incredibly intelligent, and he saw me, truly saw me, unlike my own family. He celebrated my successes without reservation and supported me through every challenge. 3 months into our relationship, I decided it was time to bring him home to meet my parents. Coincidentally, Olivia was home from college that weekend. She'd been struggling socially, feeling isolated and insecure, and I knew she was feeling down. But I never, in my wildest nightmares, imagined what would happen. Dinner was a slow-motion car crash, a meticulously choreographed disaster. My mother, Diana, noticed the tension, the subtle shifts in body language, but instead of mediating, I swear she secretly reveled in the drama unfolding before her eyes. My father, Richard, ever the instigator, kept making comments comparing us, fueling the fire with his casual remarks. Emma always was the academic one, Olivia the free spirit, he'd say, as if one was inherently better than the other, as if my intelligence was a flaw and Olivia's lack of direction was a virtue. Olivia, meanwhile, was openly, aggressively flirting with James. Touching his arm, laughing excessively at his polite, strained jokes, leaning in too close, her gaze lingering on him. I tried desperately to maintain composure, for James's sake. I didn't want to embarrass him, or make him regret coming. James, bless his heart, was clearly uncomfortable. He kept trying to shift the conversation back to me, asking me about my new job, my plans, anything to deflect Olivia's relentless attention. But Olivia was relentless, a shark circling its prey. Then she escalated. She started bringing up intimate details from my past relationships, things I'd confided in her years ago, twisting them to make me sound desperate, foolish, or promiscuous. It was a calculated, cruel move, designed to humiliate me in front of James, to undermine my worth in his eyes. My blood ran cold. That was it. I snapped. "Olivia," I said, my voice barely a whisper, but laced with a dangerous edge, "stop throwing yourself at James. He's my boyfriend. This is inappropriate." Her face twisted into a sneer, a mask of pure venom. "He deserves better than you, Emma," she spat, her voice dripping with contempt, implying she would be a better match, more worthy. "You're just a loser, jealous of my success." That was the final straw. The years of suppressed anger, the countless slights, the constant invalidation, all boiled over. "No, Olivia," I retorted, my voice rising, "you're the loser. You're just jealous of my success, of my happiness, because you can't find your own." And that's when she lunged. She came across the table, a blur of fury and resentment, grabbing my hair with one hand and slapping my face with the other. The sound echoed in the dining room, sharp and brutal. It was chaos. We were scratching, hitting each other, a primal, ugly fight fueled by years of unspoken animosity. James and my parents finally pulled us apart, but not before I felt the sting of her nails on my skin. James, his face a mask of shock and concern, immediately shielded me, pulling me behind him. I had visible scratches on my face and neck, angry red marks that took weeks to heal, a constant, painful reminder of that night, a permanent scar on my memory. James drove me home immediately, comforting me the entire way, his quiet presence a balm to my shattered spirit. I knew then that I couldn't have Olivia in my life anymore. This wasn't just a sibling fight, this was an unforgivable line crossed, a betrayal so deep it cut to my very core. The next day, Jessica came over. Her eyes widened in horror when she saw the scratches and bruises on my face. She hugged me tight, her embrace a lifeline, promising to always have my back. And she did. From that day forward, she became even more protective, a true sister in every sense of the word, a fierce guardian of my peace. My parents called, claiming they had reprimanded Olivia, hoping for reconciliation. Their voices were laced with a false sincerity, a thinly veiled attempt to smooth things over without actually addressing the root cause. I refused. I told them their complicity, their constant comparison, their refusal to mediate, their active encouragement of Olivia's worst impulses had created this monster. I told them they were as much to blame as she was. They were defensive at first, then offered a half-hearted apology, but it felt hollow, insincere, just words to placate me. I maintained a relationship with them, but it was strained, brittle. I refused every single attempt to include Olivia in family events. Family gatherings became tense affairs, battlegrounds of unspoken resentment. Olivia and I maintained a cold distance, a silent war zone that made everyone uncomfortable, forcing other relatives to choose sides. Extended family members, grandparents, cousins, they all took sides, further dividing what little family unity we had left, whispers of inheritance and divorce, not mine, but other family members who couldn't handle the tension, filling the air. Over those 6 years, my career flourished. I worked hard, poured my energy into my professional life, earned a good salary, and even got a significant promotion last year, taking on more responsibilities and leading important projects. I found success and validation outside the confines of my dysfunctional family. Olivia, on the other hand, struggled professionally. She drifted from job to job, never quite finding her footing, always blaming others for her failures. That, of course, only fueled her resentment, and my parents' belief that I needed to support her more, that I owed her something because I was lucky or more gifted. James stood by me through it all, a rock, a constant source of unwavering support and love. He saw the toll my family took on me, and he never wavered. He proposed after 5 years, on a quiet evening by the ocean, and I knew I had found my true family with him. Wedding planning began, with Jessica as my maid of honor and my college roommate, Taylor, as a bridesmaid. Aunt Patricia, always my champion, my confidant, offered to host the bridal shower at her upscale home, making sure Olivia was explicitly excluded from the planning. It was supposed to be perfect, a sanctuary of joy. Back at the bridal shower, the air was thick with unspoken tension, a palpable discomfort that settled over the elegant room. My mother, Diana, her voice saccharine sweet, her eyes darting nervously, insisted, "Emma, darling, you really should move on. Be mature about past incidents. It's time to let bygones be bygones." Her words were a thinly veiled attempt to manipulate me, to shame me into submission. My jaw tightened. Mature? After what they'd done? After years of emotional abuse and outright physical assault? I felt a surge of cold fury, a burning indignation that threatened to consume me. This was my moment, my peace, my celebration, and they were trying to hijack it, to turn it into another family drama. I took a deep breath, looked around at the faces of my friends and family, some confused, some sympathetic, some clearly uncomfortable, and I decided. No more silence. No more hiding. No more letting them control my narrative. Move on? I asked, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the awkward silence like a knife. Mom, Dad, you want me to move on from the day my own sister physically attacked me in front of the man I loved? The man I'm about to marry? You want me to forget the bruises, the humiliation, the years of subtle and not-so-subtle sabotage? A ripple went through the room. Many guests, especially James's family and some of my distant relatives, had only heard vague rumors, sanitized versions of the truth. Now, they were riveted, their eyes wide, their expressions a mixture of shock and dawning understanding. 6 years ago, I continued, my voice gaining strength, each word a hammer blow, I brought James home to meet my family. Olivia, my sister, spent the entire evening openly flirting with him, touching him, making him incredibly uncomfortable. My parents, I paused, looking directly at them, my gaze unwavering, did nothing. They sat there, watching, even encouraging it with their silence, with their smirks, with their subtle nods of approval. James, seeing my resolve, stepped forward, his hand gently resting on my back, a silent testament to his unwavering support. It's true, he said, his voice calm but firm, his eyes fixed on my parents. It was incredibly awkward. I tried to redirect the conversation, to include Emma, but Olivia was relentless. She even brought up personal details about Emma's past to try and humiliate her, to make her seem less worthy. When I finally asked her to stop, I picked up, my voice trembling slightly with the raw emotion of the memory. Olivia told James he deserved better than me. She called me a loser, a jealous brat. And then, she lunged across the table, grabbed my hair, and slapped me. We fought. My parents had to pull us apart. I gestured vaguely to my cheek, where a faint, almost invisible scar still remained, a ghost of that brutal night. I had visible scratches and bruises for weeks. It was a physical assault, witnessed by my own family, and they did nothing to stop it, nothing to protect me. The silence that followed was deafening, heavier than any I had ever experienced. Aunt Patricia, who had only known the bare minimum, the carefully edited version of events, looked absolutely floored. Her mouth was slightly agape, her eyes wide with shock and dismay. Several other guests gasped, their hands flying to their mouths. The forced smiles on my parents' faces crumbled, replaced by expressions of raw shame and fury. Olivia, who had been standing rigidly beside them, her face pale, suddenly looked small, her eyes darting nervously around the room, avoiding everyone's gaze. Diana, my mother, was the first to react, her voice a desperate, high-pitched hiss. Emma! How dare you air our dirty laundry like this? How could you embarrass us in front of everyone? You're exaggerating. You're lying. Am I? I challenged, my gaze unwavering, my voice steady. James was there. He just confirmed it. And Jessica, I nodded to my best friend, who stood tall and defiant beside me, her eyes blazing with protective anger. She saw the bruises the next day. She helped me clean my wounds. There's no exaggeration, Mom. This is the truth. Olivia, her face pale, suddenly turned and bolted from the room, tears streaming down her face. My mother, with a desperate cry of "Olivia, wait," rushed after her, leaving my father, Richard, standing alone. He stood there, red-faced, his eyes narrowed, his jaw clenched. You're irrational, Emma, he spat, his voice low and venomous, barely audible above the murmurs of the guests. You're a brat for holding a grudge this long. You've just ruined everything. You've destroyed our family. Before I could respond, Michael, James's brother, stepped forward, his imposing figure blocking my father's path. Michael, usually so jovial and easygoing, had a stern, protective look on his face. Mr. Thompson, he said, his voice calm but with an unmistakable edge of authority that brooked no argument, I think it's time for you to leave. This is Emma's day, and you've done enough damage. Your presence here is no longer welcome. Richard, sputtering, his face contorted with rage, finally turned and stormed out, following my mother and Olivia, leaving a trail of stunned silence in their wake. The shower continued after their awkward departure. The initial shock gave way to a wave of overwhelming support. Jessica and Taylor, my bridesmaids, immediately rallied the guests, redirecting the conversation, ensuring the focus returned to the joy of the upcoming wedding. Soon, the laughter and chatter resumed, though with a new, deeper undercurrent of understanding and solidarity. Throughout the rest of the day, I received supportive messages from several guests who had witnessed the confrontation, some even pulling me aside to quietly express their sympathy, their admiration for my courage, and their own similar experiences with difficult family dynamics. It felt like a massive weight had been lifted from my shoulders, a burden I hadn't realized I was carrying until it was gone. Days later, the storm wasn't entirely over. My phone rang, displaying Diana's name. I hesitated, then answered, my hand hovering over the record button. I had learned my lesson about needing proof. Her voice, when it came through, was dripping with a mix of anger and desperation, a chilling blend of victimhood and accusation. Emma, you have to fix this, she demanded, her tone sharp. Olivia lost her job. She moved back home, and she was counting on that position with Patricia. You ruined it. You deliberately sabotaged her. I felt a cold calm settle over me, a quiet resolve that surprised even myself. Mom, I said, my voice steady, devoid of emotion, Aunt Patricia made a business decision based on character assessment. Not because I told her to. You know that. I didn't ruin anything. Olivia's actions, both 6 years ago and at my shower, did that. You deliberately damaged her reputation. Diana shrieked, her voice rising in pitch. You caused her to lose her salary. You're trying to destroy your own sister. You're just jealous of her, always have been. No, Mom, I replied, my voice unwavering. Olivia's choices, her behavior, damaged her own reputation. Aunt Patricia saw who she truly was, and she made a professional decision. This isn't about me. This is about accountability. Something you and Dad have never taught her, or yourselves. The argument escalated. Diana launched into a familiar tirade, accusing me of being heartless, selfish, unforgiving. She brought up every perceived slight from my childhood, twisting them to fit her narrative, trying to make me feel guilty, to manipulate me back into line. It was the same old song and dance, the same toxic pattern, but this time, I wasn't dancing. I listened, letting her vent, letting her expose the depths of her denial and manipulation. I let her exhaust herself. When she finally paused for breath, her voice hoarse, I spoke, my voice devoid of emotion, a quiet finality in every word. Mom, I'm done. I'm done with the drama, done with the blame, done with being your scapegoat. I'm done trying to earn your approval. I'm blocking your number. Don't contact me again. And I did. I hung up the phone, and with a decisive click, I blocked both their numbers. My hands trembled slightly, but a profound sense of peace, of liberation, washed over me. It was a painful, but utterly necessary, act of self-preservation. I finally felt free, truly free, for the first time in my life. A few days later, a small, unexpected text message popped up on my phone. It was from Olivia. It read, short and simple. I'm so sorry. I messed everything up. It wasn't a grand apology, but it was a start. A tiny crack in the wall we had built between us, a glimmer of something different. I read it, and for a moment, I just stared at the screen, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. Could this be real? Was she finally seeing things clearly? I didn't reply immediately. I needed to process it, to understand what it truly meant. This wasn't just about a text, it was about years of pain, and a lifetime of complex emotions. I knew this was just a small detail, but it was a crucial one, a subtle foreshadowing of the bigger twist to come. 3 days before the wedding, James and I were about to leave for my final wedding dress fitting. The doorbell rang. I opened it, and my heart sank. Standing on my doorstep were my parents, and Olivia. Unannounced. My first instinct was to slam the door shut, to retreat into the safety of my apartment. But something held me back. Maybe it was the sheer exhaustion of the past week, the emotional drain of the confrontation at the shower, or maybe, just maybe, a tiny, almost imperceptible flicker of hope, a desperate curiosity to see what they would do next. We need to talk, Emma, my father said, his voice gruff, his face grim. My mother looked haggard, her usual polished demeanor replaced by a desperate plea in her eyes, a raw vulnerability I had rarely seen. Olivia stood slightly behind them, her head down, looking utterly defeated, a shadow of her former arrogant self. I sighed, a long, weary exhalation. 5 minutes, I said, opening the door just enough for them to step inside. James, sensing the immediate tension, came to stand beside me, his arm a reassuring presence around my waist, his hand gently squeezing mine. My parents immediately launched into their usual tirade, a well-rehearsed script of blame and manipulation. They demanded I fix the situation with Aunt Patricia, reiterating how I had ruined Olivia's life, how I was tearing the family apart. She has no job, no prospects, she's living at home. Diana wailed, her voice rising in pitch. You have to help her, Emma. She's your sister. You owe her this. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I had prepared for this. I had my evidence. Mom, Dad, I began, my voice steady, calm, I already told you, Aunt Patricia made her own decision. I'm not responsible for Olivia's choices or their consequences. And frankly, I'm tired of being blamed for everything. I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. In fact, I have a recording of our last conversation, Mom, where you demanded I manipulate Aunt Patricia. Would you like to hear it? Their faces went ashen. They were stunned into silence. Just as my mother was about to interrupt again, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, something extraordinary happened. Olivia, who had been silent, her gaze fixed on the floor, her shoulders slumped in defeat, suddenly looked up. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen, but there was a strange clarity in them, a newfound strength. "Stop," she said, her voice surprisingly strong, cutting through my mother's impending outburst, silencing them both. My parents, stunned, turned to look at her, their expressions a mixture of confusion and irritation. And then, the truth exploded. The real, raw, unvarnished truth. "Mom, Dad, you don't understand," Olivia continued, her voice trembling but resolute, each word a painful confession. "Emma's right. This isn't her fault. It's mine. All of it." My parents stared at her, dumbfounded, their faces a mixture of disbelief and growing horror. I stared at her, equally stunned, my heart pounding in my chest. This was not the Olivia I knew. This was a different person, a stranger speaking with a voice of genuine remorse. "I've spent the last 6 years, and especially the last few weeks, thinking," Olivia confessed, tears finally streaming down her face, but her gaze unwavering. "I was so angry, so jealous of Emma. You too," she looked at our parents, her voice laced with a newfound bitterness, "you always compared us. You always made me feel like I wasn't good enough unless I was better than her, or had what she had. You fed my insecurities. You told me I was the sensitive one, the creative one, and that Emma was just too ambitious. And I let it consume me. I let it turn me into someone I hated." She turned to me, her eyes filled with genuine remorse, a raw, exposed vulnerability that I had never seen before. "Emma, I am so sorry. For everything. For the fight, for attacking you, for trying to steal James, for all the terrible things I said and did. I was a horrible sister. I was so lost in my own resentment, in my own misery, I couldn't see how much I was hurting you. I hated myself, and I took it out on you. I was a monster." Then, she looked at James, her gaze meeting his. "James, I am so incredibly sorry for how I acted that night. It was inappropriate, disrespectful, and completely out of line. You didn't deserve that. You were just trying to be kind." She took a shaky breath, then continued, her voice gaining a quiet strength. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Emma. I know I don't deserve it. I needed you to hear it. From me. Not from them." She glanced at our parents, a flicker of profound resentment in her eyes, a silent accusation. "I've been going to therapy. A therapist helped me see how much I was struggling, how much I was letting your words and expectations control me. I'm trying to understand why I was like that. I'm trying to be better. I wanted you to know." And with that, she turned, walked out the door, and left. Without another word. Without waiting for a response. She just left, leaving behind a profound silence that vibrated with the weight of her confession. My parents and I were left in stunned silence. The air in the apartment was thick with the weight of her confession. My mother looked like she'd been slapped, her face pale and drawn, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. My father just stared at the closed door, his jaw slack, his usual bluster completely gone. Their carefully constructed narrative, their belief that I was the irrational one, the difficult one, had just been shattered by their own golden child. It was a moment of profound, unsettling truth, a reckoning they had never anticipated. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. My parents, who had always been so quick to blame, to justify, to manipulate, were utterly speechless. Their carefully constructed facade had just been dismantled by the very person they had always protected, the one they had always championed. My mother, Diana, finally found her voice, but it was a weak, trembling whisper, barely audible. "Olivia, she didn't mean that. She's just upset." My father, Richard, just shook his head slowly, a look of profound bewilderment and perhaps a flicker of dawning realization on his face. They looked lost, disoriented, as if the ground had shifted beneath their feet, as if their entire world had been turned upside down. I looked at them, truly looked at them, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt pity. They were so trapped in their own narrative, so unwilling to acknowledge their role in the toxicity they had created, so blind to the damage they had inflicted on both their daughters. "She meant every word, Mom," I said, my voice quiet but firm, a stark contrast to their trembling whispers. "And deep down, you know it." There was no more arguing. No more demands. Their power over me, over the situation, had evaporated. They stood there for a few more awkward moments, then my father, without a word, turned and walked out, his shoulders slumped. My mother followed, her head bowed, her usual imperious demeanor completely gone, leaving me and James alone in the apartment. The silence they left behind was not empty, but filled with a strange, liberating quiet. It was over. The constant battle, the emotional drain, the need to defend myself, the endless cycle of blame and manipulation, it was finally over. The feeling of freedom was intoxicating. I spent the next few hours processing Olivia's apology. It wasn't just words, it was raw, vulnerable, and utterly unexpected. It was the first time in my life I'd heard her take full responsibility for her actions, and the first time she'd acknowledged our parents' role in her behavior, in the toxic environment they had created. James held me, listening patiently as I talked through every word, every nuance, every painful memory that resurfaced. He reminded me that forgiveness was a gift I gave myself, a release from the burden of resentment, not something I owed anyone. He helped me understand that true forgiveness wasn't about forgetting, but about letting go of the power someone else had over my emotions. That evening, after much thought and a long conversation with James, I sent Olivia a text. "Thank you for what you said today. I appreciate your honesty. It means a lot." I didn't say I forgive you immediately, because forgiveness is a process, not a switch you can flip. But it was a start. A tiny crack in the formidable wall we had built between us, a fragile bridge beginning to form. The next day, my parents sent an email. A cold, formal, almost legalistic email, declining our wedding invitation. They claimed we had demonized them and that they couldn't possibly attend, that the family was too broken to celebrate. I read it, and a wave of profound relief washed over me. Their absence would be a blessing, a quiet triumph. It meant my wedding day would truly be mine, free from their toxic presence, free from the anxiety of their judgment. A few days later, I got a call from Aunt Patricia. She told me she had called Olivia after hearing about her apology, after witnessing the raw honesty in her confession. "Emma," she said, her voice filled with warmth and pride, "I offered Olivia an internship position. Not because you asked, but because I saw genuine remorse. She's starting next week." She sounded truly ready to change. My heart swelled. This wasn't just about Olivia getting a job, it was about her taking responsibility, about her willingness to change, and about someone seeing her potential beyond the family drama. It was a true second chance, earned, not given, a testament to the power of self-reflection and growth. The wedding day arrived, bright and beautiful, bathed in the soft glow of a perfect autumn morning. The sun streamed through the stained glass windows of the old church, casting colorful patterns on the aisle. There was no cloud hanging over me, no anxiety about who might show up uninvited, no fear of another ambush. My parents weren't there, but my heart was full, overflowing with love and gratitude. James stood at the altar, his eyes shining with adoration, a beacon of strength and unwavering support. Jessica, my rock, my true sister, stood beside me as my maid of honor, her smile radiant, her eyes reflecting my own joy. And then, as I walked down the aisle, my gaze swept over the faces of my loved ones, and I saw her. Olivia. sitting quietly in a pew, a small, genuine smile on her face, tears glistening in her eyes. She was there. She had chosen to be there, for me, for us. Her presence, quiet and humble, spoke volumes. At the reception, the atmosphere was joyous, unburdened. Jessica gave an emotional toast, her voice thick with feeling. She spoke of friendship, of overcoming challenges, of the power of forgiveness and healing, of the strength found in choosing your own family. She didn't mention the specifics of our family drama, but everyone who knew understood the deeper meaning behind her words. Later, during the dancing, I saw Michael, James's brother, talking to Olivia. They were laughing, a genuine, unforced sound, not the strained politeness I had witnessed at the shower. It was an unexpected connection, a sign that new, healthier relationships were possible, that healing could extend beyond just me. Towards the end of the night, Olivia found me. She looked nervous, but determined. "Emma," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it, almost hesitant. "Thank you for letting me be here. It means the world. I know I have a lot to make up for, but I want to try." I hugged her. A real hug, a genuine embrace, not a forced gesture. It felt right. "It means a lot to me too, Liv," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. We didn't need grand declarations, no lengthy apologies or promises. We just needed to be present, to acknowledge the past, and to look forward. The wedding photographer, bless her, caught a candid shot of us embracing, a quiet, powerful moment marking the beginning of a new chapter for us both, a symbol of hope and reconciliation. James and I departed for our honeymoon, leaving behind the toxic family dynamic, but with a renewed sense of hope for my relationship with Olivia. The weight on my shoulders was gone. I felt light, free, truly happy for the first time in years. The past was no longer a chain, it was a lesson. A week into our honeymoon, a postcard arrived. It was from Olivia. On the front, a beautiful picture of the beach where she was staying, and on the back, a simple, heartfelt message. "Hey Em, just wanted to say thanks again. Internship's going great. Aunt Patricia is amazing. I'm learning so much, about work and about myself. Thinking of you. Love, Liv." Below her message, she had drawn a small, happy face, a childlike doodle that spoke volumes. And then, taped to the card, was the photo the wedding photographer had captured, of us, embracing, a quiet, powerful symbol of a new beginning. I smiled, a genuine, unburdened smile, and looked out at the vast, shimmering ocean. I had fought for my peace, for my value, for my happiness, and I had won. Not with anger or revenge, but with truth, with courage, and with the strength to set myself free. My life had truly begun, a new dawn. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's been a long journey, filled with pain and challenges, but also with incredible growth and unexpected healing. I truly believe that sometimes, cutting ties with toxicity and choosing your own peace is the bravest thing you can do for yourself. What's one lesson you've learned about setting boundaries in your own life? Share your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, and subscribe for more stories about navigating life's challenges.